In the next session, the unbeatable Margherita Pagani, unbeatable because she was a little sick yesterday, but she made it, show us how to leverage data and tools to assure that a program or a project could scale and diffuse. So, scale versus diffusion, how to scale what works, and why should you? Margherita Pagani, CEO and founder on Impact On.
Okay, social impact. How many of you have heard about this? How many of you wonder what is it? Because everybody talks about it, and it's a lot more popular lately. And at the same time, it confuses us. Like, what is it really? How does it work? What are the actors of social impact? What are them? And especially why suddenly it feels like everybody should get involved with social impact. Well, the point is that in inclusion, and if we want to talk about inclusion, there is a difference between getting everybody involved in social impact and having social impact really working and serving everybody. Because the truth is that it's a little bit of a design issue. You can invest everybody and all the resources of the world in building the best systems for social impact, but if they don't work, or if they are used differently for what their purpose is, something is wrong. And you as designers know it better than me. My favorite sentence or quote when we talk about or think about how social impact works is that social impact can't afford anymore to be just right. It has to become effective. But what's effectiveness really in social impact? Because when we try to look at when, where, if social impact works, we start immediately to see a couple of challenges. The first one, every social issue is a weak problem. A weak problem is a problem that is nonlinear, that is systemic or multifaceted, that cannot be solved or attacked with isolated efforts or just by one organization. And the second challenge, scalability. Even when we find solutions that are effective, in 90% of cases they don't have the operational margins or the financial capacity to widen the reach and reach everybody that needs that solution wherever they are. This is particularly true for solutions for the base of the pyramid. The cost structure is just not there. And this is a big issue. It's a problem because even when we invest immense amount of talent, time, resources into finding the perfect solution, we still get stuck by obsolete method of diffusions. And those solutions are lost forever. Why this is so dangerous? Why is it so bad? There is two main reasons, really. One, we know today that in 2044, we are going to have 1 more billion people on the planet. This means that we are going to have to deal with 8.7 billion people. And most of them will have base of the pyramid issues. So how do we make sure that all of us have what we have to function, not only under a human rights perspective. But then there is a second reason why this is particularly important. Today, thanks to psychogenealogy, we know that traumas provoked by crises, like the Holocaust, chronic malnutrition, the refugee crisis, domestic violence, provoke effects that are social, psychological, and genetic. This means that these crises, if they're not well managed, provoke traumas and effects that affect generations to come, over and over along the years, till they're healed or fixed. So this type of data and knowledge that we have today put us in front of the fact that working as a system, co-creation, collaboration, and sharing what works really is not anymore just a nice idea. It's a moral obligation. Yeah, but probably you're wondering, like, who's this blondie that is talking about this heavy stuff after lunch? So before going forward, I would love to share a little bit more about my story so that I can tell you why am I telling you all this and why am I here. So surprisingly, I studied fine arts in Milan and then 1 year in Bilbao. And I was a professional volleyball player. I played for 12 years. And in 2011, I graduated with a thesis on art, sociology, and psychology. And of course, like many of us, after graduating, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But it was more than that. I was lost. Because my passion for human rights, international development, psychology, and technology couldn't find a space where to express, especially with this economic and really generational crisis that we know today very well by now. And then for me, 2012 happened. This is the year when I decided to let my link take over, and I started traveling and studying models in social impact and sustainable development in more than 20 countries on the planet. From Startup Chile to Macau in Milan, from the Baha'i in Israel to the Arab Spring, from the CERN to the refugee crisis in Greece. And I started noticing something. I started noticing the insurgence of something that we didn't see before that much. Movements that decided to use frameworks that instead of being centralized, were decentralized. Be part of this. Join us. Take this manual, take this toolkit. Be part of the movement, act wherever you are. You're part of something bigger, but we need you to act right where you are. And we're going to make it easier for you to take action. And I was like, so this is interesting, because it's new. It goes counter-current. So I started researching a little bit more, and I figured that the reason why we should allow more people to act more easily is way more important than what I thought. It's been demonstrated, in fact, that when our brain is exposed to information about crises or traumas or problems, we have empathy. We develop an empathetic curve and a consequent need to act upon it. It means that when we see someone suffering, we empathize, we perceive that suffering, and we want to put an end to what is provoking it, which sounds amazing. But it's also been demonstrated that when these flows of information gets overwhelming, becomes too much, like it happens today with our smartphones, laptops, and media, our brain cannot bear with that. And it starts telling, look, you're not in danger, so it's not you. You're feeding me all this information about problems without giving me any possibility to act upon what I'm seeing. And it shuts the channels. The brain just pulls the plug because it says it is too much. We're not designed to do this. We're not designed to know so much about social problems without having any tools to act upon it. The consequences of this, those are very well known. Isolation, apathy, ignorance, distance, exclusion, intolerance, persecution. We cannot afford this. We really cannot. And I started thinking over and over again, so what about this? What about spreading what works? What about making access, giving access to solutions so that people can act more easily? And I was in e-domain in 2015 when I figured that I needed to make it happen because I couldn't find it anywhere. Because around me in e-domain, the only thing I could see were thousands and thousands of migrants and refugees, but also thousands of citizens, communities, volunteers, and all of them were stuck, blocked by the same question. What do we do? Where do I start? What can I do? Because I need to do something about all of this. And this is why I founded Impacton. I wanted to use technology to find a way to take existing effective solutions to social and environmental challenges and make them available to other people and communities in the world to be used and replicated, adapting them in their own context. It's basically a bridge. We put together the brilliant talents of social and environmental impact with students, entrepreneurs, university, researchers, companies, governments that want to act for social impact, want to act for a series of reasons, including the barriers is too high, the risks are too high. So for them to be able to work and build upon what already exists means that they can focus on just adapting it in the best way right where they are, right with the communities that are affected by those same problems. So the main assumptions that we had, also from the design perspective, was, well, great. How do we share a project not to be known, but to be used? So we have chosen to run, we chose to run this pilot with Blood for All, a project that allows communities to set up a blood donation spot in unconventional venues like gyms or schools, especially for emergencies, but also in months in which there is particular shortage of blood. We published it, and in less than 3 months, it was replicated in 19 cities. This was last year. So we said, OK, great, we're onto something. This was just PDF. So we said, OK, how can we remove as many bottlenecks as we can to make this get to the next level? So we've chosen another project for climate change. This is a project, Ecopate from Argentina, that allows any educator, youth leader, professor, or activist to run an activity for climate change that basically highlights the connection between what we consume every day in terms of food and how that affects the environment and the climate. We have published it, and in less than a month, community translated it in French, Portuguese, and Arabic, was used in 50+ cities. And actually, the number is rising as we speak, because now that it's in Arabic, the MENA region is joining, so we're actually reaching 90 cities. And I can already think, or hear you thinking, tell me about your marketing budgets. I can tell you about my marketing budget. 0. Advertisement budgets are exactly the reasons why we know so well about projects that not necessarily are the best ones, while others remain lost forever. So we needed not to use that type of mechanisms and exclusively use psychology, design, and technology to figure out a way to spread what works without extra help for diffusion or adoption. The core of our strategy, or one of the pillars really, is what we call blueprint. A blueprint is the opposite of an academic description of a project. So instead of telling you in a wall of text what happened and how it went, a blueprint is a list of components, almost like as a recipe with ingredients, like the list of elements that you need to have to replicate that project somewhere else. For example, the type of project. Is it an intervention, or is it a project that has to be sustained over time? The impact generated. What are the outputs and the outcomes that that project generates wherever it's used? The target. Who's the beneficiaries? Degree of complexity. How many specific skills do they need to have in order to make this happen? Average time, resources, funds, policies required. Context compatibility. What is the context where this happened or was generated? Where can I make it happen? And as well, existing replications that give extra reference or where this could work are part of here. Another metric that we use, some of you might know this, is the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. It's a very effective agenda because it sets a north for social and environmental issues globally. And it's managing to engage conversations and actors that not necessarily were that interested in social impact before. But it doesn't give any actionable tool for anybody to say, OK, great, I will start with this or with that, without forcing them to start from zero with incredible risks and damage. Our goal, imagine a tool like Google Maps that can ask you, OK, where are you? Your GPS tells you you're here. What do you have? What do you see? What is the problem? How many resources do you have? How many funds? Who's around you that can help you? Which communities do you want to serve? Oh, OK. So let's get started with this project or this project. This is what you need to do next. Machine learning. The road for that is really long, extremely long. Right now, we are just at the very first step, shifting from proprietary, centralized frameworks and shifting towards a more open approach. Even just the concept of sharing what works is something that the industry doesn't necessarily get along with today. This is, for example, one of the barriers, legal aspects, IP. How do you take something that works and protect it, why we share it and we make it available to other people. The second step and the next phase would be diffusion and adoption, the network effect. One of the main elements of the network effect is trust. So how can we make sure that the projects that we share have somehow like a label or a certification for quality, so that we can at least avoid to have that type of barrier? Imagine as a metaphor, like social impact made in Italy, something that everybody trusts, because we know it's good quality, we can trust what it is behind it. And then the third phase, measurement and data that we can collect and elaborate to then drive action, decisions, and behaviors, lowering the risks for social projects to happen. Really, if I think back to that lost lady in 2012, I know that today I found my place because I can work on questions that I really care about. And as Mike Montero puts it very, very beautifully, the real question isn't whether we can change the world, but how. Which models do we want it to be based on? Which projects do we think really change the world? Is it really only about big companies or exponential stuff? Or can it be also about something else? Or can it be Ecoladrillos, a project from a tiny community in Argentina that figured out a way to use local tools to design an open source press, mechanical press, and take dirty PET, so plastic, without even the necessity to wash it, and press it to make bricks. And these bricks close in layers of wood to make hyper-light, hyper-isolate panels used to build social houses, entirely built by women from vulnerable communities because the panels are very light, and up to 1/3 of the price of an average prefabricated social house, a social enterprise. Or maybe Lavamile, a project from California that takes old buses that would otherwise be trashed and turn them into mobile hygiene spots that can go around the city and give to homeless people not only access to basic hygiene, but also by taking a shower, getting changed, they can get to job interviews or see again their families and their dear ones. Or Liter of Light, who might be known for recycling plastic bottles, but today they recycle also batteries and kerosene lamps to train communities to use them for to build solar lights, used even in refugee camps, with education for security. Would any of these projects become a monopoly or scale globally alone? Could they ever? Probably not. But would they be absolutely valuable whenever and wherever they get replicated? I think so. So let's do it. In an historical moment of crisis, with either inexistent or non-adequate solutions from above, let's gain back the power that we have of shaping alternatives, of creating or co-creating. Let's gain back the capacity that we have to look at what worked and turning into something that is adaptable and replicable wherever we are, or wherever it's needed. Because it's truth that is that turning our back from this is just denying, once again, that it's not even about social responsibility anymore. It's about social opportunity. Because to be able and to have the capacity to dream about a better future and to figure out that we have all the tools to actually make it is our bigger and biggest opportunity. They say that if you want, you can, and if you can, you should. So I would say, what is your blueprint? Thank you.
Credo che ci siano domande.